Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Cody here with Royalty Card Gaming. This is the first video this channel has done. Um, have, I'm here to do a deck tech guide on one of my favorite champs. I started this game on Levia, and once Outsiders released, I found this guy. Haven't really found anything else I really enjoy that much, but I don't feel like this champion gets the credit that he deserves. Definitely not top tier meta, but I believe I have found a combination of cards that can really spotlight his hero ability and put him over the top. So, yes, my nickname for him is AidsTide or Riptide, Father of AIDS, and this is why New Horizon as a card is the reason why it's the best headpiece for him in the game. Again, who I am, from Augusta, Georgia, the CSRA area. Got into Flesh and Blood about 4 months ago on Levia. About 2 months into that is when Outsiders released, and ever since I saw Riptide and his aesthetic, I've been all about him. He has such a unique champion ability, or abilities rather, that's I feel like content creators around this space haven't given him his due. Uh, his ability to basically cheat things in for free is it's it's I think it's broken. But that being said, it requires a lot of game knowledge, and I believe I've gotten enough reps in on this to be able to make this type of video. They call me the Squire in my community. I'm doing this YouTube channel with a friend of mine, Elijah. We call him the Lord. Funny story. We'll hit that off in another video. But yeah, next slide. Why Riptide? Champion with flexibility in how he approaches. Riptide has an answer for most champions in the pool. He's his cheeky way to get around dominate with if you play a trap from Arsenal, then you play a trap from hand, getting another trap into Arsenal, you can realistically at max probably get between 9 to 12 block while triggering traps with different status effects. And I think it's just understated as like how good of an ability that is. Can be highly defensive. But this deck tech is going to focus on hitting quick and hard whilst being able to pivot to defense on a dime when need be. The average damage output from the least that I've done all the way up until this is as much. It ranges anywhere between 8, 9 to around somewhere between 15 to 17 on average. You're probably hitting for somewhere between 12 to 13 damage a turn, if you have the momentum. There's been a lot of takes on this champion. There was obviously Royal Riptide with Crown of Dominion, and that's what really spurred the inspiration for this type of build. Was why would you do it with Crown of Dominion only being able to pop off once in the game when you could, in theory, do that every single turn. Maximizing your damage output every turn is basically what I'm trying to get at. That being said, Crown of Providence still a good option, blocks too, but you get to sink a card rather than net a card. And the interaction between New Horizon, Death Dealer, and Trench, I believe, is what puts this over the top. So let's say, for instance, on a turn you have a trap in Arsenal, and it's literally it's occupying a space you don't need it. You trench it out. You use that one resource that you netted from Trench to Death Dealer, so that way you don't have to pitch anything at all. And then you net a card from putting an arrow from your hand down into Arsenal. which can just put it over the top. And then, needless to say, with New Horizon being able to do that, then things like your bolt and shots, etc., don't have to hit to reload, because with Riptide, if you do a pump, which is what you're going to do with a bolt and shot anyways, you're going to reload with Riptide into that arsenal zone. So you're, at minimum, going in with 2 attacks already, potentially 3 or 4 based on some generic attacks, etc., that we're going to go over later in this video. Before we get to that point, the rest of your gear option as Riptide. Obviously, the Quiver of Abyssal Depths. This deck is going to run about somewhere between 67 to 70 cards, depending on who you're up against. There is about 4 sideboard cards I have in this. You do that because, on average, at best, you are ripping through or cycling or playing 5 cards a turn. It can burn through cards real fast. So the quiver is there in case you go down in like the Oldham match and you're literally running on empty. The gas tank is on empty. You pop this instant. You get 3 different arrows with different names. You get them in there, back in the deck, and you hope to close the game out. Snapdragon Scalers goes without to say. There's going to be some points where you don't have the ability to give an arrow go again, and you really want it to have go again. So Snapdragons covers everything in this deck, because everything's 1 pitch or less. Minus there is a couple Command and Conquers in the sideboard. Bullseyes, it's really good to prepare for Viscerai and the Kano matchup, or anybody really that's coming at you with Arcane. And then again, if you run this, you have the option to bullseyes in a bolt and shot, giving it go again because of the +1. Null Rune Boots, Wizards, Viscerai, that type of thing. Not even really Viscerai, because you only need usually 1 or 2 AB for that. Hornet Sting, this is a really good. This can either be a lifesaver or really good. When you block with it, reveal the top card. If it's an arrow, they take a damage. It's a way to see what's coming, and then if you don't have an arrow in hand and you need one, and you reveal it and it's a pump or a trap or something, it will go to the bottom, and it's a good way to cycle and get more odds. Not that you need that many more of grabbing an arrow in this deck. I'm still debating on this. Dreadbore, it's this last spot in my sideboard for Dreadbore. It's great for mirror matchups or decks like Oldham that run D-React heavy. This paired with Remorseless just makes D-Reacts, it's not happening that turn. That being said, I'm still debating on between Dreadbore and Vambrace for the Oldham matchup. Yeah. Your arrow and attack action selections, I've already brought up Bolt and Shot. It's the go again if it hits reload, but in this version of the deck, you really don't need the reload, because with Riptide, we're going to be playing either pumps or attack actions from hand that are going to allow you to fill that slot. And Light and Strike, in conjunction with some of the pumps that we get to later on, it allows you to use other lines of play. So I have, for instance, Nimblism and Captain's Call. So if you really want to, say, draw another card that you sunk, you could Captain's Call the Unlightened Strike, giving it go again, netting a card. Also buffing, giving it go again. It all depends upon where you are in the situation in the game. Ravenous Rabble, we love this card. It's a way to see what's coming, so we know how to plan accordingly. And it's, at minimum in this deck, it's going to be 3, but we run a majority red, so it's going to usually be 4 go again. So hitting that break point. Virulent Touch, I can't say enough about this card as a Riptide main. The way that we play this with either Nimblism, pumps, attack action cards from hand, getting this into Arsenal as Riptide is so easy, and it's going to hit for a breakpoint, and especially if it's pumped. the amount of times that like it's already good coming in for 4, the break point, but then all of a sudden you nimbleism or you double nimbleism even, and it's coming in for 10, and it if the opponent blocks from hand, you're going to create a Blood Rot Pox token under their control, which in end-game situations can just mean the end of the game because they're going to have to block that 10. And if they have no cards in hand, they can't play for the Blood Rot, they lose. Sikkim Shot, another great go-again arrow, hitting for that break point. I prefer this over things like Falcon Wing. Yes, you have to. Falcon Wing is a free go-again card, but it's not hitting for that break point. And as Rangers, we really want to strive for that break point. So unless you are playing with the aim counters on Barb Castaway with Riptide with Falcon Wing, it's really not worthy of a mention. Death Touch, same thing as Violent Touch. We have way too many easy ways of getting this card that can only be played from Arsenal into the Arsenal as Riptide. It's coming in for 6, you buff it with Nimbleism. It can come in for 9 or 12 depending on how many Nimbleisms you have. It's a very huge card, and I run it main board, but then again, when you go into things that are counters like the Drone Mine matchup and you've already got 6s that you're planning on having, it becomes huge. Drill Shot in there, great against heavy armor matchups such as Oldham, Bravo. Endless Arrow, you're going to need this for the Drill Mine matchup, and not to mention coming in for a breakpoint of 4. And the recyclability, it's going to almost always be a must block on your opponent's part. And then Infecting Shot, because who doesn't love spreading blood rot and debilitating people with it? Because in essence, this is a 1 for 5. If it hits, it's basically a 1 for 7, which is huge. Like, who doesn't love that? And most of these, except for the Violent Touch, Ravenous Rabble, and Death Touch, all block for 3. Doing it this way, you literally have multiple lines of play, and your opponent's going to have a hard time predicting what's going to be coming at them at any given turn. They think they got it figured out when you put an arrow into Arsenal, and all of a sudden you Enlighten Strike for 8 go again with a Captain's Call. Or, yeah, 8. No, it'd be... Yeah, it'd be 7 go again with the Captain's Call, and all of a sudden they're like, well, this is just bland damage. What do I do with this? Then they have to decide whether they want to eat that or they want to eat the debilitating arrow that's in Arsenal. Same thing with Ravenous Rabble. At the top dream turn, like, you can literally go 3 or 4 attacks wide, and for... like I said in the beginning of this video, like anywhere from 13 to 17 damage, like on average, which, putting that over the course of a game, like people can only take that so many times before it's game over. In total, we have 24 arrows, and attack actions we have 9, which is more than enough to interact with Riptide's ability. Pumps of choice, again. Can never have enough Blood Rot, at least with Blood Rot. +3 with Blood Rot if it hits. This is basically pumping by 5. Like a 0 for 5 pump card that interacts with Riptide's ability if you play it from hand. Yes, please, thank you. Captain's Call. Initially, I was pondering around with the thought of running Artivore in Riptide, but I found that Riptide does not like getting rid of cards unnecessarily in his hand by banishing. More on that later. But this is basically Riptide, or even Ranger's version of Artivore, obviously without card draw. You can get Go Again, and you can give your next attack action +2. Obviously there's the red version that does, I believe it's cost with 0 or less, but since everything's 1 or less, we run 2 of the Captain's Calls. It's huge. It can literally change how you interact with your generic attacks, or even with your arrows. Seek and Destroy. I've seen a lot of people running Inertia, and while that's great, why wouldn't we run Seek and Destroy again? It's the better form of Inertia. Instead of it just getting cycled, we destroy everything that they keep, and then it can further interact with things down the road, such as like our legendary trap that makes them discard one and then take a damage for each card with that name in the graveyard. Um, Obviously, that's a dream play, but that's what we want to go towards and giving them less cards to play with in the deck. Nimblism. Um, as I was saying before, this interacts with every single attack action card in this deck. Arrow, generic. Um, Ranger can only be played from Arsenal. Attack, like Virulent Touch, Death Touch. Um, we run 3 of these, and for good reason. Um, Versatility and flexibility in approach is key. Premeditate. This is Riptide's favorite pump, man. Riptide loves pondering and cheating in cards. So this is a pump that's going to make the opponent realize that you're going to be netting cards on the stack, letting you arsenal and prepare for another turn, or even if it's a trap, like they have to take that into consideration too. So when they see a premeditate, more than likely or not, they're going to want to block with everything that they have, within reason. Rain Razors, no brainer. Every ranger that's going wide loves Rain Razors. +2 interacts with Bolton shots, interacts with basically every arrow in the deck, and is putting everything to break points if they aren't at already. Let's see here. Try Shot. I didn't think this was going to be a great card, but the guy I mentioned earlier, the Lord, Elijah, he mentioned specifically Nimblism, which turned out to be like the greatest piece of advice ever, and Try Shot. It also is a dream turn, but hey, it's another. We run 2 of this in the deck. There's it's a pitch 3, cost 0, block for 3, and on the turns where this works out, you can activate Death Dealer 2 additional times, letting you draw 3 cards in 1 turn. Now that being said, with Death Dealer, you can only have 1 card loaded in at a time, even with New Horizon. So you'll have to shoot that first to make this work. But still, if sequenced right, this like really can put Riptide over the top. It's just another avenue of approach that a lot of people aren't going to see coming. Traps and endgame. We run trap total 13 in this deck. We always run the legendary traps, whether it be the go again or the attack reaction or buzzsawing down a giant pumped attack from either like an Azalea, basically anybody. These traps serve such a purpose of momentum changing that you need them in the deck. And you would be remiss not running these as Riptide, all 3. The highlights of the traps, I would say, Tripwire Trap can only be played from Arsenal, which is fine. We're Riptide, we don't really care that it can only be played from Arsenal. When this defends, effects don't trigger when an attack hits this chain link unless the attacking hero pays resource. So, what happens? You have this sitting in Arsenal or in your hand and able to Riptide it in by playing a trap from hand, arsenaling this, and then playing it on the stack. Or if it's just sitting in Arsenal, you basically wait until you know that your opponent has no cards in hand, if possible, and no resources floating. And you play this, and all of a sudden, their pumped attack with debilitating effects, etc., just doesn't go off because on-hit effects aren't going to trigger, and they're going to take a Riptide damage from this. Huge block 4. It's blocking a breakpoint. Like, if you aren't running this as Riptide, you're doing it wrong. I'm telling you now. You heard it here first. Pitfall Trap. It's pitches 2, so that's always great. We run 2 of these in the deck. Same thing. It can only be played from the Arsenal. It blocks for 3, but in endgame scenarios, this is huge because it's already going to do the Riptide damage when you use it as the D-React. But then, if they don't have a resource or a card in hand, and you sequence this correctly, you play this, they're taking 3 damage, game's over. Like, Riptide is dangerous. Like, once you're down between 2 to 5 life, and you know as as a fact that you still have these in the deck. Then from there, we run 2 of the Pendulum. On attack reaction, you put this in response. They mill 2 cards, which interacts with Spike Pick Trap very well. Boulder Trap, great against armor-heavy decks. Oldhim, Bravo. Titan's Fist, they pump it up, you Boulder Trap it. All of a sudden, they got a -1 on a shield or a piece of armor. Same thing with Anathos. Tar Pit Trap. When you're going up against another Ranger or another go wide deck like Katsu that has a bunch of on-hit effects, maybe they don't necessarily debilitate you, but it lets him, go even wider. You Tar Pit Trap it, you block that first attack fully, and then the rest of their chain is just it's gone. You've stolen momentum. It doesn't matter what they do after that. And I already covered the dominate stuff, so I think we've covered the traps pretty well. This is pretty quick. I'm going to go to my Fabrary page and real quick, but yeah, we'll do that real quick before we do the outrow. So, anything I didn't cover here? Obviously, Hornet Sting, Death Dealer, New Horizon, we covered all this. The infecting shots, we run 5 of, 2 yellow, 3 red, 3 enlightened strikes, 2 drill shots, 2 endless arrow, 2 death touch, 6 Bolton shots, 3 lace with blood rot, 3 nimblism, 3 premeditate, 3 ravenous ravel, 3 remorseless, 2 seek and destroy, 3 sick'em shot, 2 sleep darts, and then 2 violent touches, and then 2 captain's call. Ooh, one thing that wasn't in there. This card is absolutely the way. Codex of Frailty. Riptide, at the end of his chain, if you have Go Again, and you either have 1 card in hand along with Codex of Frailty or an arsenal, obviously, if it's an arsenal, you're going to discard that card, but if from hand, you play this when you have Go Again, and you can go get a card from the graveyard and swing at them with recursion. Which, if you play it from hand, right? Here's a fun interaction. You have, let's say you have a not even a tri-shot, a Boulder Trap in hand that you know you're not going to use. You Codex of Frailty, using Riptide's ability before the discard mechanic hits, to put Boulder Trap into Arsenal, and then, scrolling up, we immediately, if you haven't used it this turn, we trench it out, netting us a resource, putting it to the bottom of the deck, and then all of a sudden you have found a way to bullshit in an attack action card without dealing with the negative side of discarding, whilst your opponent is probably going to have to discard if they have anything left. I think that's huge, because then if you've played Rain Razors, and you have that 1 resource, then all of a sudden you can swing a Remorseless from Graveyard with 7, hitting another breakpoint. Other options like Death Touch, and even if you don't have the way to net the resource, if you are left with just Codex of Frailty in hand, well, then that leaves us to, well, let's just go grab Pox Malone and swing for 4, because either they don't block, they take 4, or they block it, probably taking 1, or maybe they block with armor, and they're going to get a blood rot anyways, and they're going to end up taking it because their hand's stripped. For the Dromai matchup in specific, we run Down and Dirties, 2 of them, and Command and Conquers. We don't need a whole lot of 6s. We're going to be cycling through so much of this deck that having 6 cards with 6 power to trigger Phantasm is more than enough. You will be cycling through quite a bit, and more than likely than not, if you're sequencing your turns correctly and you're not taking unnecessary damage whilst outputting the appropriate amount of damage, you will see these cards. I haven't played many games where I haven't seen many of them in the Dromai matchup. That being said, it's still a really hard matchup. You're still fighting a really uphill battle, but I feel like this version of the deck really gives you your best odds at combating the Dromai matchup. I feel like I've said my piece here. Um, so yeah, like going back to here, my PowerPoint, like do me a favor, like this, comment, spread the good word of Riptide. This guy is not getting the props he deserves as a champion. Um, do I think he's like top tier of the meta? No, but I also don't think he's D tier. I think he's, C tier, B tier. Um, I'm leaning more towards B tier because with game knowledge and enough repetitions, you have an answer in this deck to everything that somebody could throw at you. Um, there's always an alternative path to be approached for this deck. So please leave me a comment. Tell me what I can do better. This is my first ever YouTube video, so obviously it's probably a little shaky. But if you made it this far, thank you so much for making it this far, and I appreciate y'all's support. My Fabrary link will be in the description, and if you ever are in the mood to watch some Talishar gameplay, or maybe even some webcam deck techs, I stream over on Twitch, and that will be in the description as well. And yes, thank you, and have a swell RTN.